just like it was like in the early or mid 2000s, we had multimedia specialists, which was just a fancy word for saying, okay, you're going to read, write, produce, edit, and direct your entire thing by yourself and put out content. And that's kind of where we are. We're at another quote unquote multimedia kind of point. But this time the media can do anything and everything that you want in a very real way. And it's kind of scary.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the DINFOS Way, a Department of Defense podcast developed and produced at the Defense Information School. This program is dedicated to developing and showcasing the skills of military communicators, public affairs professionals, and industry experts from all over the world. I'm your host, Jack Rouse. I'm a former Navy and civilian journalist and a current training specialist here at DINFOS. Joining me today is Drew Geraci, a passionate and award-winning photographer-cinematographer who has been in the media industry for over 15 years. At 17, he enlisted in the United States Navy and served as a mass communication specialist. And after nearly a decade of service, he hung up his uniform and signed on as senior multimedia producer for the Washington Times in Washington, D.C. Drew's work has appeared in shows and advertisements produced by the NFL, HBO, Red Bull, Sony, Apple, Nike, the Discovery Channel, and Cartier, to name a few. He's also worked with David Fincher to create the now iconic House of Cards opening credits, and Jordan Peele on the credits of Nope. Drew joins us today to talk about cutting-edge production techniques, his thoughts on the future of the career field, and the skills necessary to succeed in a challenging communications environment. Drew, thank you for joining us.
Well, Jack, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So thanks again for coming on the show. I'm a huge fan of everything you do, and I'm a former Navy journalist slash pre-MC myself, so it's good to have another shipmate on the podcast.
I love that.
Tell me a little bit about what got you here today, how you joined the Navy, how you got into communications, what brought you to the show.
It's such a loaded question you've got there, because how I got here, it's almost 2 decades now, almost 3 decades to figure that out. But I joined the Navy. I hate to admit it. I had a full ride scholarship to Syracuse University, not Syracuse, my bad, Savannah College of Art and Design. But I joined the Navy because of a girl. And like most people, you're like, I'll just do this for a couple years. It'll be a good thing. But ended up really enjoying the Navy and honing a lot of my skills inside of the Navy. Went through the Syracuse Motion Media Program, which is probably one of the best programs the Navy offers, or the DoD offers. I don't even know if it's still around. I hope it is.
It is, yep.
But definitely one of those things that you got to go through. Went through DINFOS, of course, a couple different C schools, and then ended up just at about the 10-year mark, figuring out that the Navy necessarily wasn't for me, and I decided to get out and started my own thing. I was a journalist for about 4 years, and then created District 7 Media. And honestly, thanks to the Navy, and when I got out, I was out producing just a small little personal project, and that personal project basically exploded my entire career. Where I got to start working for the NFL, doing all of their intros and outros for the Super Bowl and for the NFL draft. And then ultimately getting looked at by David Fincher to create the now iconic House of Cards intro, which is pretty cool. And then from there, just snowballed into a bunch of other different projects, getting to work with Steven Spielberg recently on the West Side Story that just released, and then Jordan Peele's Nope, and then Alejandro Inarritu. Working on a couple Netflix features, and it's just been an incredible experience. But in that experience, I've seen a lot of things change over the years, and that's kind of where we are today. Is like we are definitely in the next chapter of media, and I think it's really exciting, kind of scary, especially with everything that's happening in the world right now. But I think one of the biggest factors to think about right now is just how much AI is going to be influencing what we do, and how we can take traditional means of photography and cinematography and blending those together to work well with AI and the technologies that are evolving today.
And that was the biggest reason I wanted to bring you on the show, because you not only do you have some fascinating ideas about what the future of our career field looks like, but you're experiencing it right now. You're sort of on the cutting edge of production, videography, and cinematography, and how it's relating to technology out there, which is endlessly fascinating to me, and I think something we need to pay more attention to sort of future-proof our careers. So that is definitely something I'm super interested in. But before we get to that, can you tell me about any of the impactful experiences you had in the service or at DINFOS that sort of prepared you for this amazing career that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, working with DINFOS and going through the different programs, I went through VPD, I went through the still photography, I went through the writing courses, BPass, and all that other fun stuff. And being able to be in an environment where you can learn and you can be creative to a point, obviously. You can't be super creative in the military, but those instances where you can be creative, it really allows you to kind of hone your skills and figure out what you want to do. And I can say that working in the Navy and then getting selected for Syracuse because of what I had learned at DINFOS was a big step up from just not myself, but for my career and for my work and the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I can say that going to like Syracuse University, I was I always enjoyed writing, but I didn't necessarily understand the ins and outs of writing. And because of Syracuse, I learned anything and everything I needed to learn about writing. And honestly, today, writing is probably the most valuable skill that I think a lot of us can have. Even with ChatGPT, that's taking up the majority of the the writing tasks these days. It's great to be able to use language, understand it, be able to articulate what you want. And I think that's a way that we as communicators can really benefit. And this goes for both photo and video. I think writing just complements both of those. And I learned a lot about that when I was in the Navy. So those are at least one successful skill that I've learned that I will continue to use throughout my career.
What do you think are some of the key differences between producing content in the military and then producing content in the civilian world?
There's a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of similarities to the degree that when you're creating content for commercialized production, there's a budget that's involved. There's people that will, mitigate what you can and can't say. And in the Navy or the military in general, it's kind of the same way. You've got a budget, you don't necessarily have the best equipment usually, and you're using older stuff, and you never necessarily, or you can't necessarily say anything and everything you want. It has to be packaged in a way that it's approved by the military. So they're very similar, but also dissimilar too, because I will say that there's a lot of things you can't do in the military that you can in the outside that allows you to really express, who you are as an artist, who you are as a storyteller. But it's nice that you can use a good majority of the tools that you can learn in the military, in the commercial world, and vice versa.
Before we jump into some of that, I want to talk about the skills that you have in place now that you're using as opposed to what the computer is doing. And one of the things that you're really famous for is your HDR motion time-lapse productions, which is some of the stuff that has appeared in the credits that we're so familiar with and some of those commercials and advertisements that you mentioned. How did you get so good at that particular skill set, and what is it about that skill set that you find so interesting?
Many years of trial and error and fails upon fails. I started doing time-lapse 15 years ago, back in like 2007, when he started like actually getting into the weeds of how it was done. And I kind of created my own workflow. And I really liked the idea, and this is back obviously in the early 2000s, when cameras didn't have the ability to have 14 or 15 stops at dynamic range. You only had anywhere from 8 to 9 stops at dynamic range. So creating HDR was kind of a new thing, being able to expose for the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows, and then combining those into post-production. The workflow was atrocious. I would say it probably took 30 hours to produce one 30-second scene.
Wow.
So comparatively to today's technology, we're doing things on a much faster basis. But it's kind of the building blocks to get you to where we are today. And with today's cameras having 14 stops at dynamic range, there really is no more HDR time lapse, because everything we do is HDR, because high dynamic range really is constituted after about 12 stops at dynamic range. So most cameras that are modern today already have HDR. And for me, time-lapse is just a way to express myself and be able to show new things in new ways that really hadn't been, at the time at least, expressed. And being able to collapse or elongate time over a very long period of time, and be able to see those moments that happen within those periods of time, it's pretty mesmerizing. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to make a career out of it, and then also take that and then use it for like licensing and for educational purposes, workshop purposes. It really just spread off into a lot of different things, which is why I think it's important that if you are in this industry, that you kind of do create a niche for yourself, something that you just excel at it, you're great at it, you know everything. Or not everything, but you just know a large majority of it. And that way you can continue to grow as an artist, dabble in other things, but have something that you're really, really good at and that you can fall back onto if something happens. But for me, time-lapse photography is just one of those things where you get to go out, you get to, scout a location, capture something that hopefully no one's ever seen before, and really mesmerize the audience. And I think with today's evolution in social media, we kind of are losing ourselves in that, because even like time-lapse and these videos that are out there, they don't mesmerize as much anymore because they're so common, and and people are more interested in the behind the scenes of like, oh, well, what did you do to create that shot? I don't really actually care about the shot, but I really want to see what it took to make that shot. And I think that's where we are as a society, is we don't necessarily care about what the end output is. It's just about how did we get there. So I'm kind of figuring out new ways to leverage that. And I actually just had a viral post get almost 7 million views, showing how to capture a strawberry moon using a long telephoto lens over Reagan Airport. But I did the behind the scenes of that first. And that's kind of what led to it to go viral, is just to show what it actually takes to, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, trek out there, unload all your gear by yourself, get eaten by mosquitoes, set up the shot for literally 5 minutes, and then go home. And that's really what it comes down to. But I think that's where we are. And I think there's still a lot of fun and exciting things to do out there. And especially with new technology that's coming out, there's always going to be avenues for people to be creative.
What do you think it was about the House of Cards opening specifically that drew the public attention so much? Because obviously we've seen time-lapse videography before, but not necessarily in the way that you do it. And what do you think it was about that particular work that is so appealing to the audience even today?
Well, I mean, at the time, it was something that was kind of groundbreaking, because we were introducing motion control along with still photography. And literally, we were building these systems up from scratch. They didn't exist. We're like, hey, how do we get this to do a 2-axis move or a 3-axis or a 4-axis move? We were using old, what's it called? Telescope finders and range finders to like move the head of the camera. And you're like, wow, this is crazy stuff. And you're having to do all these mathematics to calculate the X and the Y axis, where the camera is going to be in 2 hours. And it was crazy. But I think the fascination with time-lapse is just that, especially in House of Cards, is you get to see a side of DC that most people don't get to see. There's no people in it. In one of the videos I just posted out on my social media, they actually removed every single person that was in the shot. And it took months to do that back in, 2012. So it was kind of a huge task. But to be able to see a gritty, grungy version of DC, or really what the real version of DC is, in my view, it's really kind of one of those cool experiences. And it's always funny going back and rewatching things, because DC's landscape has changed considerably in the last 10 to 15 years. And a lot of the scenes that we shot can't actually even be shot anymore. They don't exist. The buildings have been destroyed or replaced. And so that's kind of one of those things that, we captured iconic history, and it's there. And we're able to see it in a time-lapse kind of version. But I think it's just really neat, in my perspective, to use time-lapse for an opening intro, especially in House of Cards. It was the first time it was ever done. And then subsequently after that, there were like 3 or 4 other shows that came out and kind of did something similar. Maybe not to the same extent that we did, because we spent over 6 months filming, and then ended up, out of that 6 months, they probably used 10% of what we shot. So it's one of those things, a labor of love, but it was definitely an experience that I loved. And it's really kind of made my career what it is today.
How did you, if you don't mind sharing the story, how did you actually get introduced to David Fincher, and what was it like working so closely with someone in that form of Hollywood that we always think about?
Yeah, getting introduced to David Fincher was probably one of those surreal experiences, because I actually got a phone call from David Fincher's office, and the first thing you hear is, "Please hold for David Fincher." And I'm like, okay, like the David Fincher, like Fight Club David Fincher, Facebook David Fincher. She's like, yeah. And you get on the call, and it's just like, hey, I want to have lunch with you. Come on down. We want to chat about a new project. Are you available tomorrow? And, without any hesitation, it doesn't matter what's happening. You're like, yes, absolutely. I'm available tomorrow. Let's talk. And it was a very interesting experience. I got to go down. We actually met in Union Station, and he had his entire production team with him, which was probably like 14 or 15 people. And we just sat at the end of the table discussing the project. And he's like, hey, love your work. I was in bed watching this video on Vimeo, and it happened to be your time-lapse video of DC. And I told my wife, I was like, this is absolutely incredible. I want to see this in my new show. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I'm thinking to myself, David Fincher is watching my videos in bed, and contacted me. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. And then from there, it's just like, the new show. It's going to star some big names, and it's called House of Cards. And at the time, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how big it was actually going to be, because House of Cards really kicked off the streaming wars and was the first huge successful streaming television show of any provider. So I think that in itself kind of elevated House of Cards to a place that it's still, a legendary kind of program. Like it holds its water, and is seen, I think, as one of those iconic shows. But honestly, being able to get to work with David and the rest of the production team was pretty enlightening, and really what drew me to wanting to do more projects in the Hollywood space, working for different streaming shows and feature films, and really allowed me to do that. And I think one of the funniest or most interesting aspects of getting to work with David Fincher was working on the dailies. When I would submit some of the time-lapse shots that we have, he would comment being like, this is good, this is bad. But he was very blunt, very direct. And I would say it was on like both sides of the spectrum. It was either super amazing or super bad. And you would see comments like, hate this, this is great. And it just goes all over the spectrum. But it was really fun getting to work with him, because I really enjoy someone that's able to tell me exactly what they like, what they don't like.
Well, what I love the most about that story is the fact that it came from not your attempt at networking and not your attempt at getting into the lap of Hollywood, but by you creating and producing something that you were going to do anyway, and it was good enough that it got someone's attention. And that's what I love about that story.
Yeah. 100%. And honestly, I would say that has been my strategy to do a lot of things in my career, is to not wait for someone to tell me what to do, but to just go out and do it myself, put it out there, be vulnerable, allow people to critique it, say things good or bad about it, and then see what happens. And honestly, that seems to be the best approach that I could say or could offer anyone, is to don't wait for someone to tell you to do a task or to produce something. Just go out there and produce it yourself. I mean, even if you don't have the budget or the money to do it, figure out a way, do low budget, and come up with the concept or the idea. And then maybe someone will be like, hey, that's a great idea. Here's a boatload of cash. Go out there and make it for real.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens.
And that's what I tell my students all the time. We have the ability to create whatever we want to support the commander's intent, to tell the story of our service members, and to support the mission. Just go out there and do it every day. And if you're good enough, and if you create enough great things, people will notice, and they will tell you, good or bad.
100%. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think a lot of people don't have the initiative to go out there and do it. They have to wait for orders, or they have to wait for the someone to task them with something. And I don't think that's the way that you got to go about it. You got to just go head first and make it happen yourself.
So what is your creative process like when you're starting a new project? Do you have to wait to be inspired by something? Do you have like a backlog of ideas kind of like Rivers Cuomo style in a notebook somewhere? Or sort of what is your creative process when someone gives you a new task?
I'll tell you what, my creative process is just full ADHD. Like, I'm all over the place. I'm out. I could be, out shooting just like some random photos, see something I like. I'm like, oh my God, this would make a really cool story, or this would be really cool to show this, and this. And then it turns into this whole other thing where I go from a left to a right to an up to a down. And I just start writing down what I want to do, and then take it back to my workstation, and then just say, okay, here's how I implement it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this shoot, this shot at this time, blah, 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 blah. And then I just kind of amp and pump myself up to go out and do it. But I think the creative process is different for everybody. And there's no one way to do it. But I think once you get inspired, and once you feel that energy of like, this could be awesome, or this is going to be incredible for people to see, you just have to kind of take that initiative, go out and do it.
So when you're creating a production like this, especially for something that's going to get so many eyes on it and be as visible as the things that you've done, what are those key skills that you think are important for a communicator or a content producer to have when they're tasked with these very large, very, I would say, important projects?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it in the very beginning. When you're tasked with a large project, the best thing that you can do is just have really good communication.
Mm.
And I think that's what lacks across the board a lot of times with a lot of clients, because they don't necessarily know what they want. And it's your job as the director or producer to say, hey, here's what we can be, or here's what we're capable of doing. Here's what we can offer. And we think you should go this way. And I think when you're able to communicate and articulate what it is that you want to do and how you're going to achieve it, people are open to any and all avenues to make that happen for you. And it's when you have that breakdown of communication, people aren't answering emails, you're not getting questions. And inevitably that happens on every film set that I've ever been on. Like, you're trying to get one thing answered. It takes like a 12 guys to figure it out when you just need one person to answer it. And that's where the slowdown comes from. But if you're able to communicate and able to actively depict what you want to do, that'll take you as far as you want to go.
So, doing as much work as you do and being involved as heavily as you are in the productions that your company creates, how do you take the time to stay current with trends and advancements in media and the way things are changing?
So that's a great question. And I think the last part that you just said, the way that things are changing, is the fact that they are changing. And if anyone is interested in what's happening in Hollywood right now, is after 2021, Hollywood basically imploded. After the strikes came, after the producers basically nixed budgets, you saw a huge decline in productions coming out, like somewhere probably in the 40% range, where people aren't working, people are laid off, people are trying to do their own thing, or they're leaving the industry altogether. And that's happening today. I mean, Hollywood has collapsed in my mind, and a lot of other people's minds. I mean, we had 5 feature film productions that were slated for 2025, and 4 out of those 5 basically got canceled, like straight up lost their full budget. Our contract got canceled. And that's the reality of the world that we live in today. And being able to stay up with technology is one of those things that can elevate you and propel you into the next phase. And the next phase that we're talking about is definitely going to be AI generated content, because everything that we create now in society is really just for social media. I would love to say that, oh, it's great to make, like an hour-long documentary or a feature film, but nobody's really watching those movies anymore. Obviously, movies are still happening and people are watching streaming shows on Netflix. But social media is where the money is made. Social media is where you're going to be able to make a name for yourself and also keep up with that technology, because the trends change, I would say, on a 6-month basis. Like, something new is coming out. Like, what I really love is the fact that the 90s crappy text overlays and ironic sound effects and stuff are back. Like, no one cares about sequencing in videos. Nobody cares about continuity. No one cares about aesthetics. They just want, honestly, it just looks like old crappy 90s video. And that's what's selling right now. That's a trend. And to be able to, stay hip to those trends and understand how those trends are evolving and how to monetize those trends, that's an important skill set. And people definitely need to be able to recognize those, change on a dime, and be able to course correct to make those things happen, to stay relevant in today's society. And staying relevant is one of the hardest things that anyone can do right now, because again, everything is changing. And with AI that came in 2 years ago, and I was saying, oh, I think AI is going to change the field in 3 to 4 years. Well, 3 to 4 years is here, and it's already changing the game. And I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, it will completely blanket everything that we do in some, if not all, aspects. I mean, you said you would talk to Adobe earlier. Adobe was adding new AI tools. Everybody is adding AI tools. Camera manufacturers, TV manufacturers, everything is AI implemented. And while I think it's a buzzword for a lot of things, it's also a reality that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And if you aren't paying attention to it, you're going to fall aside and be forgotten.
So what are those tangible aspects of the change that we can see right now, either through video production, photo production? Like, what are those things that we can point to right now and say, oh, this has already changed?
Like, let's say like you're using one of Sony's new cameras. They all use AI technology for face identification. You can now, take a photo, the camera will recognize who that, that person is, maintain photo on just that person. It can store it inside the camera. And those AI technologies allow you as a creative to be more deadly in a way, to be able to create the scenes that you want, to be able to ensure that you don't lose focus, and so that you can hone in on the story itself, and not have to have other people, pulling focus or, telling you what you should be doing in your ear, and you just do it yourself as a one-person band. So AI is here to stay, and it's going to be infiltrating every single aspect of our life.
Yeah, I was reading an article yesterday about how some of the major magazine publishers in our country are using AI models in their photos and images, and I'm trying to think how that affects the photographer, how that affects the set director, how that affects the lighting tech, how that affects everyone involved with what would normally be taking an incredible photograph of a person, and sort of what that's translated to today.
Yeah, we also have to be careful too, because I want to state that not all AI is good. And some AI really needs to be reined in and controlled a little bit more. And one thing that I really want to express is my need to use ethical AI. And what ethical AI is it's content that's created off of your own body of work. You're not using someone else's body of work. You're not generating images off of someone else's ideas or constructs. You're using your own, personal library, archive, whatever you want, the footage that you've created, and then taking those assets and then implementing AI features or set functions into it. And that's what we really want to kind of focus on, is that AI is here as a tool. It's not here to replace photography. It's not here to replace cinematography. It's here to aid it and make it better. Which is why I think that there's a lot of avenues, especially for smaller productions, to be able to use AI, obviously getting the rights to people's likeness and scenes and whatnot, but being able to still capture it live action, but maybe you're just using a few seconds of footage or a single still image and then animating that still image into AI to be able to achieve what you want. And I think that that is going to be the future for a lot of small to mid-level budget productions. I am working on a couple for some mid-tier companies that are utilizing just that technology right now. And the results and the feedback that I'm getting is like, holy crap, this is amazing. And you just saved us, $50,000. And that's unfortunately or fortunately where it's headed. And especially in today's society, if you aren't learning these tools, then again, you're going to be fighting a hard fight against an oversaturated market right now.
So having said all that, how do you see the role of visual storytellers evolving to deal with all this technology change?
Well, I think it just comes back to being able to take those tools and utilize them in a way that you can still use traditional photo and video, but you're amplifying it with the AI technology. And this would, again, go back to just kind of creating your own personal project from using your own work, little still imagery, animating those stills, or coming up with character movements, or creating a whole vast array of assets that you've created in live action and person captured, and then using those elements inside of AI. But it's just being able to stay nimble. I mean, you don't have to stop doing photography. You don't have to stop doing cinematography. You just have to understand how to start implementing it in a way that it utilizes all aspects of what's available out there in the market right now.
So what advice would you give to aspiring communicators who are just starting their careers and coming into this wild west of technology? What would you tell them to focus on? Any tools that they need to concentrate on, things they should do? What are your tips?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have gotten asked that probably a dozen times just in the last week or so. The market right now, and I don't mean to be, I'm just going to be blunt. It's pretty bad for anyone that's in the photo or video business, and a lot of people are unfortunately losing jobs or not finding work because companies are either underpaying, undervaluing, or they just don't have the availability to have it personed up or whatever. But what I would say is focusing on communication skills, focusing on writing, because when it comes to AI, prompt writing is an incredible tool and an incredible skill to have. And even though people think that prompt writing is, oh, you just kind of write whatever you want and the AI machine makes it for you, that's not true. You have to understand language. You have to understand what certain words mean, how to arrange them in a way that the AI understands and then is able to produce and output what you want. So realistically, I do believe that writing and understanding language is going to be the most important part for the future. And then having the basics and understandings of composition, lighting, and color are going to be the next best things, because even when you are out there shooting with photo and shooting with video, you want to be able to have the knowledge and information of how to dictate that in a written way, so that you can merge, live action footage together with AI. And I would say that's the niche. And if you are just starting off in this career, you definitely want to learn about large language models. You want to learn about different types of data sets that you can go out there and start creating for AI, and really honestly just start becoming a programmer. But you need to have all of these skills. So you will still need to understand the basics of photography, the basics of cinematography, color theory, all of these things. But what I would say is that the traditional jobs of, let's just say, a staff photographer or a staff cinematographer, I'm going to say that those are going to be going away within the next couple of years, to the point where, just like it was like in the early or mid 2000s, we had multimedia specialists, which was just a fancy word for saying, okay, you're going to read, write, produce, edit, and direct your entire thing by yourself, and put out content. And that's kind of where we are. We're at another quote unquote multimedia kind of point, but this time the media can do anything and everything that you want in a very real way. And it's kind of scary when you think about it too, because you can, and this is why I think that AI needs to stay away from editorial work, especially like photojournalism, because you can create scenes that didn't happen, or maybe they're embellished. So again, that's where the negative side of AI comes in. But again, if you are looking to get into the industry, learn as much as you can about AI first, and then go into photography and cinematography and just understand the basics of that.
And I'm also glad to hear you say that, because one of the things I took from the answer that you just gave, was how important knowing those fundamental skills that we teach in the areas of videography and photography and layout and design and everything else are still going to be vitally important to the creative process in the future. Because no matter what, the computer is not going to know everything that you know, and it's not going to be as smart or as creative as you will be ever.
Right. That's 100%. And again, it goes back to, as long as you know the basics and the rules that are associated with them, you can break those rules and then make new, better content. So I think understanding the basics for those is definitely something you got to have under your belt. DINFOS is great at teaching the basics. And I think that that's one of those things that's crucial to have in your toolbox, along with all of the new age technology that's coming out now.
What inspires you outside of the work that you do? Is there any particular movies or TV shows or comic books or photos, or what is it that you love that inspires you?
That's a great question. I get asked this all the time. It's not other photographers, it's not other videos that I see. I just get inspired by life. I get inspired a lot by architecture. I'll go out certain times a day and look up and see a specific scene that I really like, and I'm like, wow, I should just capture this, or this would be great as a time lapse, or this would be great to watch the sun cascading over this. But really, it's just about going out into life and really embracing and enjoying life, and being able to just kind of sit back and watch life happen in front of you, and that kind of just inspires me. And being able to work on a lot of different like social justice campaigns too, being able to bring to light a lot of things that are happening around the world that aren't great. That's what we do as communicators. We need to be able to share those stories. And I get inspired when I see other people sharing those types of stories. But really, it's just about getting out of your own little bubble and really just enjoying what's around you, life in general, and being inspired by that.
Can you share any memorable lessons or any particular story that you learned during your career that you think would benefit new communicators when they maybe have the same concerns or issues or challenges?
Well, that's a loaded question too. So there's a lot of things that I can say, and I've noticed a generational gap in the way we do things. But showing up on time is super important. Being able to be accountable for what you're able to do, but coming into each job having a backup for the backup is one of the things that I will say every photographer or cinematographer needs to have. If you go in there and your camera's malfunctioning, or the shot isn't set correctly, or something just isn't right, you need to have a backup plan. And I don't think that a lot of people have backup plans. They just figure that, hey, this is going to work and it's going to work right the first time. But I think that's the biggest mistake any professional can have, is to think that a specific thing is going to work correctly when it's supposed to the first time. As a little side story, we were shooting for series on HBO called The Comey Rules, and we were out in New York City, Fifth Avenue. We'd shut down the entire road from about 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And
That
it
is
was
not a little thing to do.
It's not a little thing to do. It was very expensive and very time consuming. I had a staff of about 50 on set, and I was basically directing this one scene, and it took us about 4 hours to get the scene, and it's literally a 30-second shot in the movie. But the techno crane that we had was a 60-foot techno crane, and because it was about 14 degrees out, the oil or something had frozen inside of the telescoping arm, and we needed to have this booming 50-foot shot following vehicles, and it failed on us. We tried for hours to get it to work. And then thankfully my producer's like, hey, we've got another techno crane. Let's try that out. They bring that in. We had the backup for the backup ready, and then that failed. And then we're basically like, okay, well, this is really terrible. And then I got to give it to my producer. He went up to the techno crane with a giant sledgehammer and just started banging up and down on the techno crane. And he's like, let's just give it one more shot. Let's make it work. And it worked. And we got the shot. We had about an hour left of filming before we got kicked out of the area. But it just goes to show, like, always have backups and always have a good producer there with a hammer to be able to get things worked out.
You know, if anybody takes any lesson away from this particular episode, if the one thing they take is always bring a hammer with you, that is an excellent piece of advice.
Always bring a hammer. Absolutely.
So what is it that you hope sort of new communicators will take away from your experiences and insights? Are there things that you hope that they don't do, or are you things that they hope that they do specifically because of what you're doing? But when you mentor those new people, what do you hope that they get from it from you?
You know, the biggest thing I want to help to do is just to inspire people, to be able to have them go out there and say, hey, listen, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not get the shot, because ultimately when you do fail, that's where you actually begin to learn. That's where you begin to, hone your craft and understand what it is you need to do to be successful. And I think a lot of people that are coming into this career get down on themselves, or like they compare themselves to other people's work. Like, I'm never going to be as good as so-and-so. My work isn't going to be as good as blah, blah, blah. And that's where you have to say, stop it. Don't think about that. Focus just on you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Worry about what you're doing to create the art that you want to create, or to create the story or the message that you want to tell. And that's the most important thing, is to just be vulnerable, put your work out there, enjoy what you do. Don't do it because someone just tells you to do it and, this is the way. It's always great to push back too. Like, why can't I do it this way? Or is there another way to do this that's maybe a little more efficient, or something that's going to give me a better result? And you just have to keep going out there and trying new things. And even when you fail, you're learning. And that's the biggest takeaway that I think people don't necessarily understand, is that once they fail, they're like, okay, I can't ever do this again because I wasn't good at it the first time. Well, nobody's good at anything the first time usually. Even the second time or third time, you got to keep going back for more until you actually understand what it is that you're doing wrong, fix it, and then you become the best at it. And that's really what I really would hope to instill in people.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you're working on now that you can share with us that might be especially interesting to our audience, or something that folks can look forward to seeing you do here in the future?
There's a new Ryan Reynolds flick coming out soon. I can't say what, but we did all the aerials inside of that. And that was fun because we were using the Sony FX3. And being able to fly the FX3 around downtown DC was pretty fun. And I think we may have been the first to have done that. And if you know anything about the drone laws in DC,
it's
very
yep.
difficult to navigate. So it was one of those things, but it's something that it's cool. And something that I always enjoy, because it's great being able to see work that you've created go out into the big screen, so it's enjoyed by millions of people. But I've got a couple other smaller productions that should be coming out this year as well. A new movie from Disney that I worked on. But there's a whole lot of different things coming up. Obviously, I am still bound by NDA, so I can't say everything. But look forward to being able to announce those when they do come.
Sir, this has been a really fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and kind of share with us your experiences and what you think the future of the career field looks like from someone who's in the trenches every day. I mean, that means a lot to us, and I think it's a pretty clear insights that you have there that we can all take some lessons from, I think. point me in the direction, if you can, where our audiences can go to learn more about your work or your thoughts, or to see what else you've done. Where can they go to find out more about you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about me, easiest way is on Instagram. I'm at Drew Giggity. That's Giggity. Giggity giggity goo. And then also on my website, district7.com. Those are the best places to reach me. And I will always respond to anyone's messages. So if you have a question about photography, cinematography, time-lapse, anything and everything, feel free to ask and I shall answer.
Well, Drew, thanks so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it. And hopefully, as these things continue to change, which we know they will, and as you continue to produce great products, we can bring you back on the show, talk some more about it in the future.
Would love to. And I appreciate the opportunity again to have me.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll talk to you again soon.